Welcome to the IC400B operator familiarization video. It is important to understand that this is only an introduction to the IC400 and should not be considered an alternative to reading and understanding the operator's manual. The IC400B is a 25-ton capacity carry deck crane with a maximum deck load capacity of 25,000 pounds when centered over the front axle. It has a 73-foot, 4-section full power boom with horizontal reach of 69 feet without the boom extension and a vertical reach of 80 feet without the boom extension. The overall height of the machine, with the boom lowered, is 11 feet 3 inches. The IC400B is equipped with a 163 horsepower Cummins QSB 4.5 turbocharged Tier 4 final diesel engine. This model has standard 4-wheel steer and 4-wheel drive with a 6-speed, power-shift transmission. The transmission has 3 forward gears and 3 reverse gears in both high and low range for a total of 6 speeds in forward and 6 speeds in reverse. The IC400B has 3 modes of steering that can be easily switched electronically from the operator's compartment: 2-wheel steering, where only the rear wheels steer; 4-wheel steering, where the front and rear wheels steer in opposite directions, which permits a very tight turning radius to easily position the IC400 in constrained spaces; and crab steer, where the front and rear wheels steer in the same direction, allowing the crane to move in a sideways direction. The steering mode page on the main display indicates the steering mode and if the wheels are centered. The wheels must be centered prior to changing steering modes. This model has a CAN bus control system, which reduces hydraulic pilot hoses, the number of wires in the harness, and improves system communication and diagnostics. The hydraulic system operates at 3,200 pounds per square inch using 2 variable volume axial piston pumps. The combined maximum output of the pumps is 103 gallons per minute, and the pumps have load sensing and torque limiting controls for high performance, efficient operation. Electric over hydraulic controls operate the 2-speed hoist as well as the rest of the hydraulically controlled functions. The IC400 is equipped with a Broderson developed rated capacity limiter, referred to as RCL, a backup alarm, and outrigger alarms that sound when deploying the outriggers. The 20-foot optional boom extension can be offset at 0, 15, or 30 degrees. With the extension deployed, maximum tip height is 99 feet and the maximum horizontal reach is 90 feet. The boom extension can be stowed on the side of the boom when not in use. Now we will cover general safety. Conformance with good safety practices is the responsibility of the owner and operator. Operators should be qualified, trained crane operators. Serious injury and even death can result if the operator is not properly qualified to operate this equipment. The operator is responsible for all operations under his direct control. Whenever there is any doubt about the safety of handling a load, the operator must stop and refuse to handle the load until safety has been assured. The operator shall not engage in any practice which will divert his attention while operating the crane. Do not run the engine in an enclosed area or indoors without adequate ventilation. Do not use ether for starting. Ether is highly flammable and can be ignited by the intake manifold heater grid, causing engine damage or operator injury. Do not install personnel platforms to boom tip or load line. This product is not intended to lift personnel. Death or serious injury can result. This list of rules is only a supplement to all federal, state, and local safety rules and regulations that must be followed. Be sure to familiarize yourself with all applicable rules and regulations on a regular basis. Before beginning operation each day, thoroughly inspect the entire crane to be sure it is in good operating condition. The daily inspection list is found on page 3-4 of the IC400-3B Operation and Maintenance Manual. Inspect the load hoist rope and wedge socket daily. We recommend rope inspection, replacement and maintenance in accordance with ASME B30.5, Section 5 to 2.4. Keep operator's compartment and deck free of debris, mud and grease. Keep all window glass clean. Keep gauges and displays clean. Tools, lubricants, or rags should be removed from the deck or operator's compartment and kept in a secure location. The operator should also perform the following pre-operational checks and maintenance: and, when warranted, after operation, such as refilling the fuel, DEF tank, etc., so that the unit is ready for the next shift. Check the levels of the engine oil, coolant, and transmission. Use the petcock on the transmission. The top one is used to check the oil level at operating temperature. Refer to the Cummins diesel engine manual while performing the following checks. Engine oil level. Diesel exhaust fluid, DEF, level. Coolant level. Crankcase breather tube. Drain any water from the fuel water separator/diesel filter. Air intake piping. Air cleaner restriction indicator. Dust ejection valve. Cooling fan. After treatment exhaust piping. Check the air cleaner intake system for cracks and loose connections. Check the general condition of the tires. Visually inspect the machine for loose pins, bolts, physical damage and leaks. Check all hydraulic hoses, particularly those that flex during crane operation. Check the hydraulic oil level. Check the fuel level. Check the foot brake for proper operation. Check for the warning icon operation as shown in the brake maintenance section in the operator's manual. Check the parking brake operation. To apply the parking brake, place the transmission in the neutral position, depress NP button. This action will apply the parking brake. Check power steering operation. Observe chassis for normal driving operations. Observe boom operation for normal power and speed. Check the load line and hooks for damage. Check the condition of sheaves and load line retainers. Check the anti-tube lock system for proper operation. Check the backup alarm for proper operation. Check the operation of all transmission gears, forward and reverse. Clean all glass and check for cracks. Check the operation of all warning and safety devices. Check the operation of rated capacity limiter according to the RCL operation manual. Check the outrigger modes on the display for proper operation. Check the emergency stop switch and the seat switch for proper operation. Check the drum rotation indicator. Now let's take a look at the operating controls and displays in the operator compartment. Inside the operator compartment are two full-color touchscreen displays. The remote-mounted screen is used for the RCL system and the dash-mounted display is for engine and crane monitoring. The dash-mounted display includes warning lights and push buttons to change display screens. The display includes engine hour meter, engine RPM tachometer, engine coolant, engine oil pressure, engine DEF level, engine after-treatment manual regeneration button, engine after-treatment regeneration delay button, engine RPM incremental adjust, machine fuel level, machine hydraulic temperature, system voltage, transmission gear indicator, seat switch indicator, parking brake indicator, brakes charging indicator, low brake pressure, steer mode. Other display screens that are accessible from the main display include the following screens. The outrigger page shows the outrigger position as well as the hydraulic pressure on each outrigger. This page can be accessed by pressing the icon or the physical button below the icon on the 15-button panel. This page has a digital level that represents the machine level, as measured by the crane level sensor. The steering page shows the current steer mode that is being used, and indication of when the wheels are centered, and the steer mode that has been requested. This page is accessed by pressing the icon on the touchscreen display or the physical button below the icon on the 15-button panel. The diagnostics page displays a full set of system diagnostics, which includes but is not limited to a. The status for crane sensor and control functions through analog and digital inputs and outputs to aid with troubleshooting, and b. An interactive fuse and relay diagram that will show the operator the status of the fuses and relays in the main power distribution panel. This page can be accessed by pressing the icon or the physical button below the icon on the 15-button panel. The climate control page provides controls for the heating and cooling in the operator compartment. This page is accessed by pressing the icon on the touchscreen display or the physical button below the icon on the 15-button panel. The home page is accessed by selecting the home icon or the associated physical button below the icon on the 15-button panel. The lights and turn signal controls are located on the 15-button panel located below the main display screen. The emergency flasher lights are actuated by engaging the left and right turn signal buttons simultaneously. Repeat this to disengage the emergency flasher lights. The steering column tilts and telescopes. Levers on the side of the column hold the column in the selected position. Hydraulic functions are controlled by two multi-axis joysticks mounted to the armrests. The right joystick controls boom elevation and the main hoist. The left joystick controls boom rotation and boom extension. The joysticks control functions over the CAN bus. The arming button is located on the right-hand joystick, and in the 15-button panel below the main display. Activation of the arm button when the operator is sitting in the seat enables the control system. The park brake switch is located on the 12-button panel to the right of the operator. To apply the park brake, first stop the machine. Then push the neutral/park side of the rocker switch and the switch will light up. Once the rocker switch has been depressed, the gear display on the main display will show the machine is in neutral, and the parking brake light will illuminate below the neutral indicator. Windshield wipers, windshield washers, and defroster controls are located on the 15-button panel located below the main display screen. There are several ports located on the right side of the cab near the operator's knee. A Cummins engine diagnostic port. A CAN bus system programming port, normally for production use during initial programming. And an expansion port for future use. Should the CAN bus system fail to operate, all hydraulic functions can be operated manually. The handle for the manual override is located below the operator's seat. If use of the manual override handle is required, lower the load when it is safe to do so and contact qualified maintenance personnel. Now we will go over some typical setup and operating guidelines. To prevent dropped loads, always attach the cable clamp properly, on the non-live side of the load hoist rope. Death or serious injury can result from a seriously weakened rope caused by a rope clip. Refer to the operator manual for proper setup. Do not use crane without the cable retaining pins in place over the cable sheave. Death or serious injury can result when the dowel weight and hook are pulled over the end of the boom. Refer to the operator's manual for retaining pin usage. The rated capacity limiter must be checked after each setup for proper operating configuration on the display. When preparing to lift a load, always refer to the crane capacity chart in the operator's compartment before lifting any load. Do not exceed the rated capacity. It is the operator's responsibility to verify site conditions are suitable for making a lift. Contact your supervisor if there is any question regarding site conditions that may affect lifting capacities. The weight of the load must always be known. The rated capacity limiter components must be inspected for damage and proper function at the beginning of each shift. If the rated capacity limiter is found to be inoperative or malfunctioning, the problems must be corrected prior to using the crane to lift a load. Note that the rated capacity limiter must be tested with a known load at least once a month. Refer to current documentation of the most recent load test prior to operation. Be careful to prevent load swinging. A swinging load can cause instability or loss of control of the load. Be aware that the anti-tube lock system and the rated capacity limiter can cause a sudden stop of boom movement, which can cause the load to swing. Move the boom slowly whenever these systems might stop the boom. The operator and ground crew must ensure that all ground personnel are out of the machine's working area before hoisting a load and that the area remains clear of personnel until the load is lowered safely to a suitable resting place. Never use the crane to drag the load sideways. Instead, raise the load and move the boom appropriately to relocate the load for placement. Do not use the boom raise function to raise a grounded or fixed load. The hoist function must be used to lift a load. Warning: never allow personnel to ride on the hook, the load or any device attached to the load line. Movement of personnel using any part of the hoisting apparatus is prohibited and may result in serious injury or death. Ensure all personnel remain clear of the outriggers as they can cause serious crushing injury. Always use outriggers if possible. If you must lift on rubber, keep the load as close to the ground as possible. Move the load very slowly and use tag lines to prevent load swinging. Level the crane before lifting. A small incline will significantly reduce the capacity. Use appropriate cribbing under the outriggers for leveling. The crane may tip at less than rated load if the surface is uncompacted, has wet dirt or soft soil with frozen crust, thin or cracked pavement, or surface near a hole or ledge. Always use adequate outrigger pads and/or cribbing. Refer to the operator's manual for details on the proper setup. Never leave the controls while a load is suspended. Always lower the load to the ground prior to leaving the operator compartment. Always use adequate parts of load hoist line for lifting heavy loads. Refer to the load chart to determine the required parts of line. Monitor the rope to ensure the rope is properly seated and wound evenly on the hoist drum. Ground personnel must be sure to keep hands away from load hoist rope when hoisting is being operated. Maintain at least 3 wraps of rope on the main hoist drum to prevent the rope from pulling out of its anchor. Never wrap the hoist rope around a load. Always use approved rigging. Avoid pinch points such as between a rotating turret and the cab, or in access holes of a telescoping boom, or between the two-block mechanism. Avoid two-blocking. To achieve this, stop raising the hoist line before the dowel weight or the hook block strikes the boom tip plates. Pay out hoist line while extending the boom. Maintain clearance between the dowel weight or hook block and boom tip while booming down. Danger. Two-block will abruptly stop boom lowering, boom swing, hoist and extend. If the boom is moving fast, this will cause the load to bounce or swing, which could cause loss of control of load and/or tipping. The amount of counterweight supplied with this crane should never be changed. Unauthorized addition of counterweight in the field to increase lifting ability constitutes a safety hazard. If the crane must be operated near energized electric power lines, use the chart on the side of the turntable to determine required clearance distance. When in doubt of the voltage, contact local power authority. Do not operate the crane outside during thunderstorms. Avoid lightning strike opportunities. Consult local weather reports during inclement weather conditions. If the crane must be lifted to move it, the crane has 4 lifting rings, one at each corner of the load deck for lifting the crane. Use proper slings and rigging methods to keep the load balanced during the lift. Do not lift the crane by the boom. Proper lifting and securing practices are the responsibility of the rigger in charge. When transporting the crane, be sure it is properly secured to the vehicle. Utilize the tie-down anchors as indicated on the crane to stabilize the load and prevent shifting during transport. Use caution not to over-tighten the chains and binders when securing the crane to the transport vehicle. Proper securement and prudent shipping practices are the responsibility of the carrier. Now we will discuss common operating practices and procedures. The rated capacity limiter on the crane is intended to indicate crane configuration, load, capacity, radius and to alert the operator to impending overload conditions. The use of the rated capacity limiter does not replace the requirements of understanding and using the crane capacity chart. Verified weights and measured radii must take precedence over the rated capacity limiter readings. Before lifting loads, the operator must read the crane capacity chart and adhere to the load capacities and radii of handling stated in the chart. The information provided on this chart is based on structural strength or stability. Before we cover using the RCL system, here are some important operating tips. Always be aware that the RCL can stop boom movement at capacity overload conditions and in two-blocking conditions. Use good judgment in controlling the speed of boom movements to prevent shock loads and swinging loads. If the RCL system stops the crane movement, there are various remedies that may be used to restart operation. If the hook is too blocked, lower it using hoist down, if it is safe to do so. Telescope retract may be used if this is safer. The lifting configuration consisting of parts of line, hook block or overhaul ball, and main boom or boom extension must be verified to be sufficient for the load prior to lifting the load. If the load is at the maximum allowable load radius, the boom can be raised or retracted to a safe radius, or the load may be lowered to a safe place using hoist lower. If the boom extension is at its lower angle limit, the boom must be raised. If there is a malfunction of the RCL or anti-two-block system that causes loss of boom movement that cannot be remedied by the procedures above, the override button on the RCL display may be required to move the boom. The override button provides an amount of time, and a countdown for that time, to the operator, to move the load into a safe position. Warning: the emergency override button may be used only after normal operating methods have been exhausted. Improper or careless use of this button can cause damage to the crane and may result in equipment damage, serious injury or death. The operator who uses this override in an emergency must use good judgment. Rated Capacity Limiter, RCL, Operation. Step 1. Once the crane is started, the setup page will appear on your RCL display touchscreen. Step 2. If the machine does not have a boom extension, move on to Step 3. If the machine has a boom extension, select the extension by touching the display button that reads Standard Boom. Once you press Standard Boom, a drop-down menu will display a list of choices. Choose the appropriate extension. Your choice will now populate itself in that box. Step 3. Next, select your parts of line. Touch the display button that reads 4 parts of line. If you have a 4-part line, no further action is required. If need to choose a different option, use the scrolling arrows, located toward the bottom of the display. Once you make your selection, it will populate itself in the box. After you have established your boom/boom extension and parts of line, use the arrow button on the display that points to the right. This button will lead you to your ultimate RCL home page. Before starting operation, you must arm the system by pressing the arm button on the 15-button panel located below the main display screen. A red light indicates that the system is unarmed and a green light indicates that you have activated the system.